You're not just tired, you're spiritually stuck, and deep down, you know it, because the fire you once had feels like a flicker, and no matter how much you pray, worship, or try to press forward, it's like you're hitting a spiritual ceiling, and the most dangerous part is that you've gotten used to it, normalized it, even called it just a season. But here's the shocking truth. The reason you feel spiritually stagnant isn't always because of disobedience. It's often because of disconnection, and the enemy knows he doesn't need to destroy you if he can drain you, because a dry soul is easier to deceive, and your spiritual life isn't stuck because God is distant. It's stuck because something has secretly replaced him at the center of your heart, and that something doesn't always look like sin. Sometimes it looks like routine, busyness, even ministry, and the truth is, you've learned how to function without fire, how to serve without surrender, how to perform without presence, and that's why it's not hitting like it used to, not because God has changed, but because you've changed, and you've been carrying what you were never meant to carry, trying to maintain an image of being okay while secretly starving spiritually. And here's the hidden warning. Spiritual stuckness is often the fruit of subtle idolatry. When you elevate your comfort over your calling, your timeline over his timing, your feelings over his truth, and when your faith becomes centered on what you want from God, rather than who he is, intimacy is replaced by entitlement, and prayer becomes a performance instead of a pursuit. And what you're really wrestling with isn't boredom. It's bondage to a version of Christianity that costs you nothing but promises everything, and that's not the gospel Jesus preached, because he said in Luke 9 verse 23, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily and follow me." And you can't carry a cross while clinging to control, and you can't follow Jesus while trying to lead yourself. And here's what the devil doesn't want you to realize. Stagnation is a spiritual strategy. His goal isn't to make you evil, it's to make you apathetic, to lull you into a place where you stop expecting God to move, stop praying with power, stop repenting with conviction, and start living numb, passive, and disconnected, because as long as you stay stuck, you won't walk in authority. And that's his hidden weapon. Not always attack, but anesthesia. Dulling your senses with distractions, flooding your mind with noise, and convincing you that spiritual mediocrity is acceptable as long as you're still in church. And if you're honest, you've lost the hunger, the edge, the fire you once carried, and you're trying to function in the now off of oil from a previous season. But the manna that fed you yesterday won't sustain you today. Exodus 16 verse 20. And stale faith is a warning sign that you're living off memory instead of encounter. And if you've been wondering why your prayers feel dry and your worship feels empty, it might be because you're showing up with your mouth open but your heart closed, and God won't force intimacy. He invites it, but he requires honesty. And some of you have been performing for so long that you've forgotten what it means to actually pour out, to weep in his presence, to repent deeply, to cry out like David did in Psalm 51 verse 10. Create in me a clean heart, O God. And if that prayer feels foreign, it's because you've been trying to grow without dying, trying to be filled without being emptied, and revival doesn't come through effort. It comes through surrender, and the scary part is that you can be busy in the kingdom and still be bankrupt in your soul, and God is too merciful to let you keep faking it. Which is why he's allowing everything that used to satisfy you to suddenly feel dry, because he's calling you deeper. And what feels like frustration is actually formation. What feels like silence is actually a setup, and the moment you choose to stop masking it and start facing it, everything can shift. But that requires brutal honesty, not just with God, but with yourself. Are you really seeking him, or just what he can do for you? Are you pursuing holiness or convenience? Are you more in love with the platform than the presence? Because until you confront those hidden truths, the ceiling won't break. And here's the hard revelation. You cannot carry new oil in old wineskins. Mark 2 verse 22. And sometimes the reason you're stuck is because you're still clinging to a past season, past identity, past mindset, and God is trying to transition you, but you won't let go, and letting go isn't weakness, it's worship. And it's only when you release control that God can release breakthrough. And this is where it gets dangerous. The longer you stay spiritually stuck, the more you start to compromise your convictions, not because you stopped believing, but because you stopped burning, and cold faith breeds compromise, and what you once called sin, you now call struggle. What you once resisted, you now tolerate, and the longer you sit in stagnation, the more the enemy begins to rewrite the narrative, whispering that maybe this is just how it is now. Maybe the fire was just a phase. But don't you dare believe that lie. Because Romans 11 verse 29 says the gifts and calling of God are irrevocable, and what he placed in you is still alive. It just needs to be reawakened. And sometimes God will allow stuck seasons to kill off self-reliance, to strip away idols, and to drive you back to the altar. because the deeper the calling, the deeper the crushing, and the enemy hopes you interpret the pressure as punishment, when really it's preparation. And if you could see what's on the other side of your obedience, you'd stop entertaining spiritual laziness and start warring for your fire again, because this isn't just about your peace, it's about your purpose, and if the devil can't have your soul, he'll try to steal your passion. Because passion is what pushes you to pray when you don't feel like it, worship when you're weary, seek when you're surrounded by silence, and this is your wake-up call. Get your fire back, not just for you, but for everyone connected to your obedience. Because your breakthrough isn't just personal, it's generational, and you're not just fighting for today, you're fighting for legacy, for destiny, for everything hell is trying to block through complacency. And if you felt stuck, don't wait for a conference, a sermon, or a feeling. Repent now, return now, resurrender now, because God is not far, He's just waiting for your yes, again, and the same God who breathed fire into your spirit once is ready to breathe again. But this time, you've got to mean it, not just emotionally, but sacrificially, because revival doesn't come cheap. It costs your pride, your idols, your agenda, and this is your moment to break the cycle of numbness and return to your first love. Because what's ahead of you requires a new depth, and God is ready to take you there, but He can't fill what's already full. So empty yourself of the noise, the fear, the fake, and get real again, get raw again, get hungry again.